city's chance to either reset the scales or the city's moving further down this spiral to obsolescence. And all of us knew that.
Gradually, then suddenly. This is everything I'm looking for from a more journalistic piece, an in-depth piece, an expose. It was sharp and snappy, deeply informative, never glib. It sunk right into the thick of it from the beginning, and the ball never stopped rolling at a breakneck pace that never felt too quick. You really got all of the information without having to scramble for it, but it was due to that excellent pacing that the tensions were kept up, and you really felt that push and pull of the city's battle to keep itself alive. Really wonderful, diverse assortment of voices to give the inside scoop and the inner workings with differing perspectives and interests. And I felt almost honored to be able to get to go so in depth with the piece. It was never boring. It was charged right from the beginning, and you got to see these vested interests of civilians and politicians who were in the thick of it, trying to make it work, public workers defending their pensions, which is what they were technically owed, and others in all sectors weighing in on art and education and the suburbs, all while displaying the struggle on the world stage. So the stakes were very high, and I think that they showed it quite brilliantly. I was hooked from the beginning, and for others who are in city politics and urban planning, I sent it over too. So thank you for this piece.
I really liked Gradually Then Suddenly. This is one of the most fascinating documentaries I've seen in a while. Because like I always say that the strength of a documentary rises and dies on the subject matter. And like for me personally, as somebody who's like just recently, like since 2016 or whatever, got into politics and like local government and like how all of that works and stuff and like um that type of thing, like activism and all of that type of thing. This really was in my wheelhouse. Like it was in was right in my interest space. It was like a algorithm recommendation type beat. But yeah, so I really like the subject matter. It was very interesting. Also vibes of like it had me like because like I remember being in 2013, being like in high school or middle school or whatever, like hearing about oh Detroit is bankrupt, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, how does a city go bankrupt? How does that what does that even mean? Like it's a city. How does it what is I didn't understand. And then also, is it better now? Where is it? How did that even happen? Like all of these questions. And this really laid it out and in an engaging way. It laid it out in an engaging way, like legal policies and documents and like um, city government, but made laid all of that out, but in an interesting and engaging way. So that, and then also I really wanted to shout out the editing, the graphics, and cinematography. Excellent, excellent. The vibe, like when the timeline, almost like the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, where he like goes through the timeline and really like lays it out for you. The maps of Michigan and all of that, maps of Detroit and all of that, and then the 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 interview shots, excellent interview shots. They're very aesthetically pleasing. So overall, really well done. Good job.
Gradually, then suddenly, coined from Ernest Hemingway's line of how does bankruptcy happen gradually and then suddenly. And one thing I really liked was the start of it, the reenactment from all sides about when the filing originally happened. This is all about the filing of the bankruptcy of the city of Detroit, which, I found it extremely, I love documentaries anyway, but I found it extremely informative and an easy watch because I wanted to know, like, how does this happen? And how do we solve this? Um, but the reenactment to start, it sets the tone. It's like a time bomb. This person's got to get here, and this person does this, and everyone's waiting in the clock, and then boom, we get the filing in just in time. And I loved seeing everyone's point of view and having everyone there to give their opinion and their point of view. But if we look at the history of Detroit, you had the 1970s, drastic leaving of the city, white flight, and the Black middle class leaving. You have massive waves of tax disclosure. You have a lack of federal support. You have the downfall of the auto industry. When you think of Detroit hysterically, you think of the car industries and Motowns and having one of the first Black mayors and everything like that. And it's just like all these things sort of came on in. It's like, how do we get here? They talk about the Governor Snyder and how he made these laws to make these sweeping decisions on how communities should manage. And they have this position called emergency management, which some people equate with dictatorship because it is someone who has more power than the mayor or the governing body to make decisions on the financial state of the city at any particular time because of the state of the state of emergency. And so, a lot of people are considering this emergency manager is considered an end to democracy. The major issue was the pension rights and are being unsecured according to constitutional jargon and could be impaired through this bankruptcy process. So you're working, and I know my father had a pension. He worked for the city of Philadelphia for his whole life. And his pension is the very thing that, his widow, my mother, is able to survive on, now that his income is no longer coming into the household. So it is very important, and I know very crucial, from taking you from one aspect of life to another. And, for some, the pension can be the difference between middle class living or government assistant living. And so to find out that these pensions are not something that are protected, which is supposed to be the secured thing that you work for, it just really makes you think, like, what are we doing this for? And then you kind of see the whole idea of the art from the museums. And for some, this is an easy fix, like, yeah, sell the art. But, as an art lover also, I understand that this is a rock and a hard place because you're already dealing with a dying city. Essentially, do you really want to sell off the only cultural beacon that you have? Then you have the grand bargain that took place and all the things with the foundations and how it was just this whole big, horrible math problem. But it still did, even though we saved the museum and made it independent of the city, it still ended up taking away from the pensioners. And in my opinion, I don't know, like, I know that taking 50% of your health benefits away from a pensioner is more detrimental than taking millions away from a millionaire. But what I will say about the people of Detroit is one line that really resonated is, we're never bankrupt in terms of love and compassion. And it just seemed like they were content to band together throughout everything. And that to me is the richness of that place.
This was a really well constructed documentary, presented the facts in an interesting and digestible way, even cinematic at times. It was paced really well, thoughtfully put together. It had a real natural progression as the story of Detroit's bankruptcy was laid out to us, and then we're introduced to Kevin Orr, and it rolled really smoothly, and was just edited really well, and again just thoughtfully constructed. So I really thoroughly enjoyed this one. I think it's still pertinent today, even some 9 years later. So really hats off to the director and the editor and everyone involved in this one. I think they did a great job piecing it together. So great work.
This is for the documentary Gradually, Then Suddenly, The Bankruptcy of Detroit. I'm actually from Michigan, so I was happy to see a documentary about this. I actually don't watch the news a lot just because of all the bad news that's presented and how it's presented. So I was glad to see this and really be more educated about what happened. Great technically. Everything with the production value on this was just spot on. Really well done. So professional. I would love to see this on Netflix. Love to see it get out and really understood. It was interesting that, because I'm just catching up on this, the details of it. To me, it was interesting about the art and the pensions and not thinking you would ever really have to worry about something like that with such a big city. And Detroit being known for, the auto business and things that you would think would keep or sustain a city of that size. And I was interested to see that really only like 700,000 people live there. But I think it brought the humanity to Detroit too, the actual people who live there. It brought the realism of it home, I think. I think it's definitely something that needs to get out there. So I hope you guys get on some platforms that people can watch this and it gets out there. So great job to everyone. And I especially love the little girl and her being at the bus, waiting for the bus at the end. And the photographer was cool too. It was a cool element to show, him kind of taking pictures to map out this this big moment, I should say, in history for this city. So great job, everyone.
I really loved this. I enjoyed documentaries because I like learning about things that I never knew before or, wouldn't have known before. I live in the United States and I never knew this. I never knew that Detroit went bankrupt. It's just in recent enough history that it's not in the history books, and it was not something that at that time in my life I was paying attention to nationwide news. Never been to Michigan, let alone Detroit. So getting to learn about this was really, really interesting for me, and it was really well researched and it was clearly really well documented, and the interviews and the footage that they had and the way that they told the story with not just the footage and not just the interviews, but also with drawings of different court moments and drawings of different things. We kept it really interesting visually and kept it really interesting to watch and to learn as you're going through this entire story of all these different kind of nuances that went into it and fed into it. I thought it was really fascinating. I really, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy movies like this. So A+. I liked it.